The Rebirth Resurgence community is huge, and for good reason. It's offered fast-paced, high-octane gameplay for a long time now. As Rebirth addicts, we've grown incredibly fond of aggressive pushes, and sometimes we can lose sight of the tactical nature of Warzone. But with the release of Verdansk in just a few short weeks, I can't help but wonder how will players handle the switch back to big map. Today we're going somewhere I've never taken the channel before. Since we can't play Verdansk yet, I'm going to drop into Urzikstan and start to unpack some large map strategies that will be essential on Verdansk. We're going to take what we know from Rebirth and mesh it back with strategies that I used to use on Verdansk in its prime. The biggest change will be balancing aggression. Losing gunfights is far more punishing because we will have to face the gulag and can seriously set the team back without our respawn timer there to save us. Today we're going to break down the aerial ambush, wide rotational holds, and how to properly execute zone defense, all on a large-scale map. If you guys enjoy the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And let's start practicing for the greatest map in Warzone history. First thing to talk about when you're playing on a much larger map is how to get to players faster, and the inclusion of redeploy balloons and zips giving us the elevation to find that information and utilizing all of our viewing space to find those enemies. Once we get there, we're using the element of surprise, but we're selecting an area that is close but not directly on them. This gives us a vantage point through multiple angles to assist teammates and then to switch to our transitional targets. We're going to use the gas line in this scenario to hold the team at the edge of the circle. And we're going to fan out both on the left and right flank and pressure them back towards the gas. This puts their back against the wall and they have to fight more defensively. We don't have radar pings after killing an enemy, so we have to rely on our awareness and the memory of clues that we last saw. We also are counting based on enemy kills and the communication from one another. It is far more important in large map battles to be able to ping and communicate enemy rotations as effectively as possible. Once we see an enemy, we should be marking or communicating where they're going and start to plan the rotation to take them out. We also have to be conscious of third parties, which are also flying in to the sound of gunfire. This is far more critical in a large map battle. We're constantly rotating against the line, communicating, and giving pings about other teams and their decisions along the way. We need to constantly be in a state of large map positioning, which requires us to play a little bit more defensive around the edges. If you get caught on a circle slide or a circle collapse and you have a lot of distance and you are caught towards the open of that circle, you're not going to be able to get away. Maximizing the intel with the UAVs is going to be a huge strategy in any game mode, especially in large map because you're not having those pings after each individual kill, so you need to balance the increase in necessity for that intel. After you wipe a team, one of the most important things to do is to be ready to take the fight to the next direction. Right now we have a UAV going on that showed us there was close enemies nearby, and we are coordinating a rotation towards those enemies. We're looking into the sky to make sure that when we see fly-ins, we are pinging those as well. We have a lot of enemies in one area, so we are cautiously approaching the best angle. Responding to your teammate's position and continuing to fight in a formation rather than a stack is exactly what we want to go over here. In this particular fight, we're going to talk about zone defense and how we're using the elevation to our advantage. We're also covering the left side of this zone, whereas Sneaky Skunk on the right-hand side of the screen here is covering the right zone, and then Sneaky Snake is pulling up to the left to support. We are holding the line and communicating that the enemy is down by the truck, and then we're revisiting our first knock at the bottom of the hill here. As a sweeping formation, we're pushing that gas line together, not overly aggressive, and maximizing the position and elevation that we have. This will become an incredible part about fighting on Verdansk, which is not as necessary when you're fighting on smaller Rebirth maps. There's far more cover on Rebirth Island or Vondel or Fortune's Keep. Speaking of lack of cover, you will get caught in the open on large maps. It is very easy for a team to hold you, so you need to be using all of the mechanics that you have available. In this game here, as a predominant Rebirth player, I have on stims, I should be fighting with smoke. For in that scenario, we could have used the cover of smoke to get out of the open. So we're using our movement mechanics to get to better cover, higher elevation, and we're also calling out and pinging those positions of the threats as we see them. We're not staying in one spot, and we're trying to rotate erratically but concisely, going to a position. Sometimes you can save your teammate and sometimes you can't. And that is going to be a very hard call that you will learn more of as you get into larger maps. We want to not let the enemy bait us based on our teammates' death. We need to move and start to reassess what else we can do. A big thing about fighting too close, especially in large map, is you become a target for enemies that have appropriate positioning. So if you leave some distance between you and your teammate, you can assist, whereas players are playing very close and aggressive. Also gives you the ability to back off the fight if it starts to go extremely bad. We don't always want to jump down due to lack of information. There's a lot of information that is missing in large scale maps without the pings of enemy deaths after you kill. So we have to be looking for our targets, marking them for the teammate, and then using the positioning that we talk about in all of our videos. Here we're taking the Overwatch position, looking down over top the teammate, and providing cover fire if he were to be overrun by those three. We're also following that far right flanker, which that large scale rotations is going to be much more difficult whether you're the aggressor or the escaper, and you can't forget about them as they swing around cover. So even if your teammate's re-engaging someone else, we're going to be remembering that enemy and saving that flank for the rotation. Using every piece of cover to rotate out of a bad situation is going to be good in any game mode, because you never know who will find a slight elevated angle to take you out. So always have cover in your back pocket when you can. Again, when your teammate is down, you need to be checking that security before you immediately res, because a lot of teams will go for that insta-thirst and they will be using you as bait to come and save them. Additional loadout drops in the endgame are going to be, will hopefully be a part of Verdansk. They were back in the day, and they're still on large maps. So people will hold this area for the value of getting their own guns and getting the free kills towards the end of the game. Make sure you are being extremely defensive in that area if you're trying to visit a loadout box. Map knowledge will make finding elevated positions and different pushes definitely more effective. Once you find enemy teams that are holding you in the endgame, as you learn different hold points and elevations, you will become a smarter player for predicting these enemy rotations. Reacting to those holds is everything, and you need to be able to rotate away from sentried positions and find different routes to get yourself to safety. Map knowledge is far more extensive in large maps just by the sheer size of the map, but also the way that people play it. There are thousands of more possibilities and hundreds of more pieces of cover to learn how to rotate and what you can see. As always, it comes with experience. I have probably played less than 10 games on Urzikstan in the last year, but the purpose of this video is to start to unpack those large-scale firefights so that when Verdansk arrives, it will become more natural. And I think that's something that all Rebirth players that plan on visiting Verdansk absolutely need to do. If you found the video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, keep building, keep adapting. SitRep out.